Jason here, and today's founder is Woodbury Langdon. If that name sounds a little bit familiar, it's because he's often overshadowed by his much more famous brother, John Langdon, a future governor of the state of Massachusetts, a leader of the Sullivan-Clinton campaign in upstate New York, yada, yada, yada. John Sullivan is a pretty famous American revolutionary, arguably the most famous from New Hampshire, maybe John Stark. Now, his brother Woodbury, like him, came from a family with a successful father who was a farmer and a shipbuilder out in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Now, Woodbury and his brother John decided they didn't want to be shipbuilders, and instead they wanted to join the mercantile trade. So Woodbury Langdon studies how to build a counting house under a man named Henry Sherburne. Now, he ends up marrying Sherburne's daughter, Sarah. They start a family. Woodbury strikes out on his own, and he gets pretty extraordinary wealth for himself. And by the time Lexington and Concord breaks out, Woodbury Langdon is one of the more successful merchants in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And then the Lexington and Concord happens, and well, Woodbury Langdon realizes, hey, I'm owed a lot of money in Great Britain, and they're cutting off Boston. Before they come cut off Portsmouth, I better get on a ship and sail to England to go get my money. I'll remind you that leading up to the American Revolution, the colonists were only allowed to trade with Great Britain, and therefore their banking was only done with Great Britain. Of course, that's not how it played out. There was a lot of smuggling going on. As you know, many people made a lot of money smuggling and trading with other countries, but everything that was done above board was done with Great Britain, usually London. Woodbury Langdon had done plenty of business above board. That's why he was not seen as super suspicious when he went to get his money from London, and that's why he was able to travel to London. He goes to London, spends 2 years in England, and never gets his money, gets fed up, comes back home. That's when he gets to New York City, and as you can see to my right, he gets detained in New York City. You see, by the time he gets back, General Howe has taken over New York City, and he's sitting there with his soldiers occupying the city, and this ship comes in with Woodbury Langdon on. Now, Woodbury's brother John at this point had already made quite a name for himself, was already a major general in the Continental Army, and well, and I apologize. No, I confused him with John Sullivan. Woodbury Langdon's brother did not lead the Sullivan-Clinton campaign. Yeah, that was John Sullivan, also from New Hampshire. I apologize for that. I do want to correct myself. But his brother had made a name for himself in the Continental Congress, would be a future governor, yada, yada, yada. So Woodbury's loyalties are questioned, and General Howe doesn't know what to do with him. So he detains him in New York City, but he's on parole, so he's allowed to move about New York openly and freely. And eventually, Woodbury does leave Manhattan. Not with permission, he escapes. He goes back to Portsmouth, and that's when he devotes himself to the Patriot cause. He hasn't gotten his money from Europe. He's been detained in Britain. He's done with it. And New Hampshire sends him to the Continental Congress, just like his brother went. So Woodbury goes, he serves there for a few years. He serves there for 1 year, despite being elected to 4 terms in the Continental Congress. Woodbury then goes back to New Hampshire and serves in the New Hampshire House of Representatives, and he serves on the Governor's Council, which is essentially the cabinet for the state of New Hampshire. He's then selected to the New Hampshire Superior Court. He is an associate justice of the New Hampshire Superior Court. Now, he spends a year in this position, and then he resigns to attend to his private affairs. As we've seen, this guy likes to make money for himself. Now, by 1786, he's actually again chosen for the Superior Court, and this time he'd stay there for 5 years. But his second stint in the New Hampshire Superior Court is a little bit controversial. He actually faces impeachment for neglect of duties. Now, during the impeachment trial, Woodbury Langdon actually argues that the pay given to an associate justice is so meager that he needs to attend to his private business or he'd go broke just serving his country. Again, guy likes money. Furthermore, he complains that the legislature was too involved in the court's decisions and the running of the court. Again, this is just a year before the Constitutional Convention happens, and that's written, and separation of powers is very important to these people. And Woodbury Langdon is basically saying, no, you're too involved in the court. There shouldn't be this much There should be more separation. Now, he does get impeached in the House of Representatives, but as we've learned recently, the way impeachment works is once you're impeached in the House of Representatives, and this is done at the state level too, then it goes to the state Senate, who will then have a trial to see if you should be convicted and removed from your position. However, once impeachment goes through, Woodbury decides to just resign from his position instead of go through the hassle and trouble of a trial and that embarrassment. So he resigns, goes back to private life, presumably makes more money, and then he actually runs for the United States Congress. He actually runs for U.S. House of Representatives, but his reputation had taken quite a hit after the whole impeachment thing, and he does not successfully get that. And he retires and spends the remainder of his days in private life making lots and lots and lots of money. So that is the story of Woodbury Langdon, an important, though much underappreciated American founder. I hope you learned a little bit. If you did, make sure you hit like and subscribe for American Revolution all week long.